it's Mr. Magoo's foreign policy. This guy's stumbling through history, and he couldn't be doing it at a worse time. The Washington Post, even in the last hour, the Washington Post posted their editorial board said that Obama enters this speech tonight in a deep political hole of his own digging. His foreign policy has been stumbling, improvised, and incoherent. I think that's putting it politely.
Joe Scarborough the other night doing a radio interview and Mr. Magoo's foreign policy. We just had Rick Santorum on, and he said that Obama is fecklessly sleepwalking through this whole Syria deal. And our next guest, our friend Charles Hurt, a columnist for the Washington Times, wrote a great column today, which was headline, Syria War is a Joke, but we're not laughing. Hello, Charles.
Hey, Steve. How you doing?
Good to talk to you. So, here's what I said all along. I don't want us to be in Syria. We have no business in Syria. But at this point, knowing what we know now and seeing where we are now, it would have been better if he would have taken to the microphone one day and said, 3 hours ago, I launched cruise missile attack, blah, 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 blah. It would have been done. He would have sent his message. I would have, railed on it on the air. But what's going on now is a disgrace.
It's almost like what you're talking about, which, of course, you're exactly right, and that would have been the only sane thing to do if your mission really was to send a message and take out chemical weapons, because that was the only moment at which time we might have known where they were before he began scurrying around to hide them.
Right.
And all of it, and the fact that he didn't do that really makes me start to wonder, and I feel like I'm a pretty questioning journalist, but I'm not cynical enough to actually believe that this is all politics. But when you lay it all out and you lay out what his possible motives may have been, it seems more and more likely that the only objective here has been to make politics out of this. And I hate to say that because I think that I cannot think of a more treasonous accusation to make against a president. But I mean, honestly, what is the purpose here? And in fact, in terms of Assad, we came into this with the idea that that President Obama wanted to punish Assad, but what he has wound up doing in the course of 5 days was ensuring that no matter what, he will stay in power.
He will stay in power, and he will keep his chemical weapons because, like you said, at least we thought we knew where they were before all this started, before all these, this game that's being played. But now now our friends, the Al-Qaeda rebels, tell us that he's moved them to Iraq. I've heard he's moved them to Iran. Who knows where he's moved them? But of course he's moved them. I mean, this whole thing is sick. And now Syria. Now, since Syria again today said we want to sign on to the treaty against the ban on chemical weapons, and now Russia. I mean, now how could we say no and we don't trust you and then bomb them anyway? We can't do anything now.
This has been a great PR boon, by the way, for Assad. I mean, this whole week has just, now he looks like some sort of statesman in Syria. And now that we're actually negotiating with his government, and we send our people in there to go, or the UN people in there to collect these chemical weapons or to inspect them or anything like that, and people start shooting at them, are we not going to shoot back? You better believe we're going to shoot back. We're not going to have our scientists come under fire. So he in the name of security now, we will be working to prop up the Assad regime. And I mean, Assad has been trying to do this for 4 or 5 years now that he's been having seething problems in his country, and he hadn't been able to bring closure to that. But President Obama, in an effort to attack him, has managed to throw him that life ring.
What did you think, Charles, of that speech the other night? It's funny, CNN brought on, I believe, Elijah Cummings, and they had him sitting there as a Democrat who is not convinced and is leaning towards not voting no. Let's see how he reacts after the speech. Gee, I can't tell how he's going to react after the speech. Wolf, this was I'm still not convinced, but he said everything I wanted to hear. Gee, what a surprise. But that aside, the media, like Scarborough and the Washington Post, and and a whole list of people have been critical of Obama, Tavis Smiley, for different reasons. But I'm just scared to death. I'm not even worried about how he's perceived, by the media or if the public. I'm just scared to death how he's now perceived by our enemies. Everything they thought about him is not only confirmed, but it's even worse than that. And we are we have no respect. No one fears us. And we have a man who is obviously uncomfortable, at the very least, of being commander-in-chief.
Yeah, I mean, that was the most bizarre presidential address I've ever watched. And then to have him at one point, I don't remember the exact line, but there's at one point where he launched into, kind of blaming the war weariness on 12 years of unnecessary wars.
Right.
He is so messed up the situation and embarrassed himself, and then he goes out there and then he's still blaming his predecessor, a term and a half, nearly a term and a half into his administration. But it is scary, and I mean. And you're exactly right. In terms of these our new allies in Syria, these upstanding rebels, who I saw a horrific series of photos today where
they beheaded a guy. And
they're performing an execution
Yep.
of a fellow Syrian, and these people, we can't wish them away. They do exist, and they only respond to one thing, and it's not being nice to them.
No.
They respond to knowing that if you mess with the United States of America, you are going to have a drone come in and it is going to take out your entire family. And they understand that. And that performance the other night by the president was certainly the most undermining expression of American firepower.
Well, I want you to hear something here as I feverishly try to find. Okay, this is going to be cut 10 again, Will. Now, here's like what you just said. If you mess with America, here's what the president should have said in answer to this question that Gwen Eiffel at PBS asked him. She said, "Can Syria retaliate, against our allies or our interests if we hit them?" And what he should have said was, his first part was no, Syria can't, but Iran can and Hezbollah can. I'm going to let you hear what he said, but first I'll tell you what he should have said. If they dare to retaliate, they will feel the wrath of the U.S. military like no one has ever felt it before. But instead, listen to what he said in answer to this question. I just played it for Santorum. He obviously never heard it before because I think I'm the only one who picked up on this, and he couldn't believe what he heard. Let's play it.
His allies do, though, Iran, Hezbollah. They could carry out asymmetrical attacks against our embassies, for example, in the region. But we don't actually think that they want to do something like that. Keep in mind that Iran was the country probably last subjected to large-scale chemical weapons used by Saddam Hussein. So there's a real aversion to chemical weapons inside of Iran. I don't think either Iran or Hezbollah thought that what Assad did was a good idea. And for us to take a limited, proportional, although significant strike on Assad's capabilities to degrade them, I don't think would prompt them to get involved.
So Iran, they don't really like Assad, you see, even though they give him everything and he's their puppet, and they don't really like chemical weapons. And Hezbollah, they don't really like what Assad did because they're really moral, upstanding people, and we don't think they're going to do anything. Can you imagine this?
It's so amazing, and it sounds like what he's saying. Maybe he's confused about the Iranian people and with the government, and sure, there are a lot of westernized Iranians, civilians.
Yeah, but what about Hezbollah?
yeah, exactly. But he actually thinks that Hezbollah and the Iranian government,
the Ayatollahs,
they have a problem with chemical gassing. I saw a poll that said I think something like 60% of Palestinian Muslims.
We did this, support suicide bombings. Yep. And the next greatest people, I think, was Lebanon, and that was 33%. So the Palestinians, that's a whole other issue. Who we're forcing Israel to make concessions to. We're giving all kinds of money to. They're giving the money to prisoners who Israel let out of prison, and 65% of them say, yeah, suicide bombings are okay.
Another thing about all this that it just blows my mind with President Obama is, his whole, the case against Assad, and I'm not, the guy's an evil warlord as far as I'm concerned, but The case against him on the chemical weapons use is anything but a slam dunk. That there are all sorts of reasons why any one of these many groups out there that form the Syrian rebels could have used it and could have done it as a political ploy. Their case, if they have better information, they haven't shared it. But one thing that is not in dispute is that Saddam Hussein used chemical weapons in war and against his own people.
Right.
And it was and that was the reason. That was the weapons of mass destruction was the reason we went to war in Iraq. And the only reason President Obama is president today is because he opposed a war against Saddam Hussein. And now he's just bloodlust for going to war against this guy. He's a pretzel. He has a rubber spine. It makes no sense. He's utterly feckless.
Yeah, no, absolutely true. Absolutely true. Yeah, fecklessly sleepwalking is what Santorum said also. My friend, great to talk to you as always. We'll do it again next week.
Great, Steve.
Thank you. Take care, Charles.